Hi everyone, in this video we're going to create our first little proper 3D model. We're going to go with something nice and simple, such as this pencil, and we're going to go through this step by step. So all you need to do is watch each step of this process. You can pause the video after each step and then repeat that process yourself on your own computer. Yeah, we're going to build this little pencil model. Not the most exciting thing, but it'll give you a nice little bit of experience into the basic construction methods for 3D objects. So this model's been created with 3 individual cylinder shapes, which have been modified and then assembled in this format. And we're going to go through and pretty much repeat this now. So what we build might be slightly different to this. This is more of an ad-lib kind of make it up as you go along type exercise, which you'll usually find pretty much every model that you're building yourself is. So yeah, we can kind of make adjustments here and there. So to begin with, what we want to do is create a folder that's going to organize our 3D files. And this folder is called a project folder. And it's really important that you use project folders for all your different projects so that you can keep the files all separated and organized. So to create a project folder, we're going to come up to File, down to Project Window. And at the top here, where we've got Current Project, we're going to press this New button just here. And we're going to give this a name. I'm going to call this, let's see, I'll just call this Starter Model. Oops. Starter Models, I'll call this. So basically what we can do is use this project folder for some just little basic beginning models, just for practice. The next thing we want to do is actually select a location to create this folder in. And to do that, we select the little location folder here at the end. We'll click on that. It's going to pop up this file browser, and you can select a location. So it might be a desktop or, you know, like a hard drive, for example. Normally, I wouldn't select a location on a USB stick because USB sticks are not fast enough really to read your files from when you're working. You should never use a file directly off a USB stick. Always copy it onto the main computer itself, like the desktop or a drive on the computer. For this, I'm just going to go onto the desktop for this example. And then once I've finished this little project, I can copy and back up this folder from the desktop onto a storage drive. Okay, so you can see there we've got Starter Models project folder, and it's going to go onto my desktop. Inside the main folder, it's going to create each of these subfolders, so scenes, templates, images, and so on. Our model will automatically get saved into the scenes folder when we use the save function. So we'll just press accept. So I've now got that folder on my desktop. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is just turn my grid back on. So you guys probably will be looking at either a single view with a grid in it like this, or you may be looking at something more like this, where you've got 4 viewports, a top, front and side, and a perspective view. So you may have, you know, one or the other of those configurations. You can just tap your spacebar with your cursor in a viewport to zoom to that viewport. Tap your spacebar again to get back out into your 4 views. Alright, so I'm just going to select this pencil again, and I'm just going to get this sort of out of the way. I will leave it in the viewport so we can actually use it as a reference, but what we're going to be doing is creating the pencil in the middle of the grid, so I need to have this out of the way. Okay. So, as I said before, this pencil model is made of 3 cylinders. So, what I'm going to do is pop up to the polygon shelf tab here, and I'm going to click on the polygon cylinder tool, like this. And I'm just going to click and drag a cylinder about the length of my pencil. Okay, so I can make this as long or short as I want. If you want to make like a little pencil that's been sharpened down to a little nub, you can do that if you want. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to create just a small number of sides for the pencil. Some pencils, that is, are not necessarily completely round. Some of them are hexagonal, for example, where they've got a smaller number of sides. So you can see here, we've got, in this case, we've got 8 sides, so that's octagonal. Hexagonal would be 6 sides. So in order to adjust that on this cylinder, I can come across to the channel box, which is over here, channel box, and I can click on this input poly cylinder 1. If these buttons aren't here at the side, just click on these buttons up here. The channel box is the one in the very top corner. Show hide channel box just there. Switching these 3 on will add these buttons down the side to make it easier to switch between those different panels. So within the inputs, we'll go poly cylinder 1, and we'll change the subdivision axis number to whatever the number of sides you want. For me, I'm going to go with an 8-sided pencil, like that. So I'm going to type in 8 for subdivision axis. Okay, the next thing I want to do is make sure that this pencil is sitting above the middle of the grid. So up here in my channel box for this cylinder, note that the cylinder is selected as well. I'm going to type in 0 for the translate X and translate Z numbers. Depending on where you've clicked and dragged to create your cylinder, you might have random numbers in all of these. My Z axis is okay, but I definitely need to type in 0 for the X and the Z. Just make sure both of those are 0. You can leave the translate Y where it is. That's not really going to matter at all. Okay, so the next thing is to create 2 additional cylinders, one for the little metal piece and then one for the eraser. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this cylinder. So I'll go to File, Edit, down to Duplicate. That's Control D on the keyboard. So I'm just going to click that, and then what I need to do is switch on my Move tool just over here, which is W on the keyboard. That'll bring up my little move handle. And all I need to do is drag the green arrow up, and that's just going to move this new cylinder upwards. And you can see the original cylinder still down here. Okay, so you can see that there. So what I want to do is just place it above the other cylinder, and then what I'm going to do is use the scale tool just here, and that's R on the keyboard. And I'm going to grab this green cube and drag this down, and that's going to scale the cylinder down. So what I want to do is sort of make it proportionately about this big. Okay, we don't want this too long. That's too long and that's too short. So somewhere in there, something like that. Okay. And then what we're going to do is duplicate that again. So we'll go Edit, Duplicate, and then we'll use the Move tool again. And we'll click and drag the green arrow and move this up again. So this top piece is going to be the eraser. This piece here is going to be the metal collet. And then this section here is going to be the pencil. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to move this down just a little bit. We'll just kind of move them closer together. Just using the Move tool, just dragging them up and down. Note over here that all 3 of these pieces have 0 translate X and 0 translate Z. Okay, this one does. And this one does as well. Okay, and that's because we're just moving them up and down. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is make this piece a bit wider. So it's a little bit thicker than the other 2 parts, and you can see that that's so that we get this little overhang just here. So what we can do in order to double check this is just overlap this one with the eraser. Like this, so just pull this up, then grab the scale tool just here, and that's R on the keyboard, And look for this little flat green handle just here. Okay, it's not the green cube section at the top, it's this one just here. Just click and drag that out a little bit. And that's going to increase the radius, like that. Older versions of this software might not have these little middle handles. These ones just here. Yeah, you can just kind of rescale it up again and then just squash it down if you're using an older version. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is create these little ridges just in here. Okay, and with this one I'm going to do these a little bit differently. I want to put more of them in. So what we're going to do is add some divisions. So let's come up to the Mesh Tools menu, and I'm going to come down to Insert Edge Loop Tool, Option Box, just here at the end, and I'm going to click that. And what this will do is pop open, in this case, the Tool Settings tab, and I can adjust the options for the tool. What I want to do is use multiple edge loops, and instead of using 5, which is what I did with the other one, I'm going to use 10. So that way I've got twice as many of those ridges. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll click on one of the vertical lines on this object. You'll notice that when we turn the tool on, the object is switched to edge mode, so the lines are now blue. So we just left click once and release the mouse, and that's going to add in 10 divisions or 10 edge loops around this cylinder. Okay, then what we'll do is turn the tool off using the select tool, and I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to double click every second edge loop, starting with the top one here that's selected. So this one just here, holding control, double click, and that'll deselect it. Then I'll skip this one and double click the next one. Then skip this one and double click the next one. Skip this one, double click. Oops, sometimes it doesn't work, so you can double click one next to it. Skip this one and double click, like that. And I've actually got one too many edges, so I'm also going to double click the bottom one as well. And I will delete that one afterwards. Okay, so what we've got is 4 edges selected, okay, or edge loops. What I'm going to do is come across to the scale tool again, just here, R on the keyboard, and using the same handle as we did before to expand this out, what I'm going to do is take this little green flat square handle, click and drag it, push it in towards the middle, like that. Now I don't want to push it in too far, because you can see if I do that, the eraser in this case is kind of poking through. I just want to push it in just a little bit like that, so we kind of get this crinkly effect. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is delete this extra edge loop that I've got here, and to do that what I'll do is just double click it. I'm not holding any keys down, okay, and you can see that that just selects, and then what I can do is hold down control and hit delete, and what that'll do is delete the edges that I've had selected and the vertices that are connecting, or the points that are connecting those edges to these other vertical edges. Okay, so all we really need to do now is basically kind of recenter this crinkly bit in the middle of the overall cylinder shape. So there's a few different ways we can do that. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to right click and hold on the object and select vertex mode, like that, so we can see all these little vertices, these little points here. And I'm going to drag a box. I'm going to try and get my view sort of side onto the shape, and I'm going to drag a box around the vertices in the middle. Now I don't want any at the top or at the bottom. So if you drag a box that's sort of just in the middle like this, and it's not going sort of outside the shape, you should just be able to get those points selected. Rotate your viewport around using the Alt key and the left mouse button, and just double check that there aren't any extra vertices at the top selected or at the bottom. Okay, so none of these should be yellow. All right. Then what we can do is grab the move tool and just drag these down a little bit like this. So we want to get the gap here and here about the same, and so this should be about right. Okay, then what we can do is grab the scale tool again, and we can drag this down a bit and create something that looks a bit more like this. Okay. So once you've done that, you can just deselect these points by clicking in an empty spot in the viewport, right click and hold on the object again and select object mode. Okay. The next thing is going to be taking the eraser section, and we're going to round the top off a little bit. Okay, now this is a little bit too tall for me, so I'm just going to select it, grab the scale tool and squeeze it down a little bit. Only needs to be about this big because most of it's going to get kind of pushed in the top here. Okay, so something like that. And I'm going to select edge mode. So we're going to right click and hold on the object, select edge, and we need to double click one of the edges running around the top like this, and that'll select that loop. And then we'll do the same thing on the bottom, holding shift down this time to add to the selection like this. So we've got the top and the bottom selected. Then what we're going to do is bevel or round off this edge. So what we'll do here is come to Edit Mesh, Edge, Bevel, just here, and we'll just click on that. Now, usually the bevel tool settings, no matter what you do as far as the settings are concerned, they tend never to actually come out at the right size. So basically with this tool, what I tend to do is activate it like this, and then come over to the channel box and select Poly Bevel from the input list just here. Note that the object is still selected in this case in edge mode. So if I grab the fraction value just here, so if I just click on that and then holding Control down, middle mouse click and drag to the left, I can reduce the width of the bevel. So the bevel is this rounded kind of section that we get on the sides here. Okay, so if you drag too far to the left and the fraction number goes to 0, you lose the rounded kind of edge. What I want is something that looks something like this. Okay, you'll notice that it's doing it on the bottom as well, and that's fine. The other thing you should do is probably set the segments to 2 if you haven't, if it's not defaulting to that. Oftentimes this will be set to 1. Okay, so segments of 2, and then just reduce the fraction. Okay, so now what we'll do is right click and hold on top of that object and select object mode, and the eraser more or less is ready to go. Okay, the next bit that we need to do basically is we need to essentially round off the bottom, or taper off, I should say, the bottom of this pencil down here. Now, there's different ways you can do this, and some of them are a little bit more accurate than others to a real world shape. I'm going to do one that's sort of it's a little less complicated than what I did on the example over here. But it should still give us hopefully a reasonably good shape. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to take the pencil, and I'm going to actually, what we'll do is we'll grab yeah, I'll do it the other way around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this the cone tool over here under the polygon shelf, so polygon cone. Okay, and then we'll just kind of zoom in down here, and I'm going to click and drag the base of this cone, and this needs to be bigger than the bottom of the cylinder where the pencil is, okay, but not too much. Okay, so something like that, and then we'll click and drag and lift this. Actually, we'll lift this up. It's probably going to be easier to see. So we end up with something like this. Okay. Now I need to rotate this around so that it's pointing downwards. So to do that, I'm going to spin it around the rotate x-axis 180 degrees. So over here in the channel box, I'm going to type in rotate x 180 and hit the enter key. When you're typing in numbers or words or anything like that, like naming things, always get in the habit of pressing enter or return after you've typed the number in. Some of these options don't lock the number in unless you actually hit enter. I need to align this to the middle of the grid, so I'm going to type 0 for translate X and Z. So 0 for translate X and Z, and you can see that that's now placing that shape right in the middle of that pencil. Okay, I'm going to lift the pencil up a little bit, so I'm going to select the pencil, grab the move tool, and just drag it up just a little bit. Okay, just so it's off the ground a little bit down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this cone to make a tool that I can kind of cut or sharpen the end of this pencil with. So it's almost like I'm making like a pencil sharpener. So what I want to do is grab the polygon cube tool over here on the polygon shelf, and I'm going to drag a little box sort of that fits around the bottom of the pencil like this, and then I'm going to click and drag this up so that it's just shorter than where the cone is, just there. Okay, so I can see a little bit of the cone just here. All right, so with the box selected, I'm going to hold down shift and click on the cone like this, and then I'm going to come up to the mesh menu and come down to booleans and select difference. And what that should do is cut the cone out of the cylinder like this. So it's kind of like a cookie cutter. It basically is just stamped a hole through there. Okay. So then what I can do is use this shape to do the exact same thing to the pencil. So I'm going to select the pencil, shift select this box, and then use the same tool again, mesh, booleans, difference. And what that'll do is trim the bottom of the pencil off. Now you might find that the actual end of the pencil is flat, like this. If I zoom in here, you can see that that's a little bit flat, and that's okay. Okay, I'm going to right click on there and select face mode. Actually, I'll right click on there and select vertex mode, and then click and drag this down. Okay, something like that. All right, so if I right click and select object mode, you can see now I've got that kind of sharpened kind of pencil look to this. Now, as I said, I'm doing this a little bit different to this one, and you will find that there's some slightly weird kind of shading going on down here, so we might be able to fix a little bit of that. What I want to do basically is select all the edges around where the pencil has been sharpened, so in between the wooden piece here and the painted piece here. So what we can do here is right click and hold on the pencil, select edge mode, and if we zoom in sort of on the end of the pencil here like this, drag a box around this kind of zigzag edge like this. That's going to select all the edges up here and all the ones down here. Holding Control down, I can then click and drag a box just through these edges down here, and that'll deselect them. And the same thing up here with these, like that. That's going to leave me with the little zigzag edge that you can see there. And what I want to do basically is make that a hardened edge. And that hopefully will it might reduce the little weird shading artifacts that we're getting. So I'm going to go to the normals menu at the top. Now this will be available if you've got this little drop down here set to polygons. So just make sure that says polygons. Come up to normals and select harden edge like that. And then you can deselect the edges by clicking in an empty spot on the grid. Right click and hold on the object and select object mode. And you can see now that looks more like a sharpened pencil. You will still get a few lines in here, and there's really no simple way of getting rid of those because we've basically got a pointed end on this. So that's basically the software trying to make this look smooth. Okay. So the final couple of steps here. First off, what we're going to do is we're going to select this little metal shape. I'm going to right click and hold on the object and select the edge. Just if you've got anything selected like this, just click in an empty spot to deselect them, and then holding down shift, double click on each of the loops that runs around the shape. So just here, just shift double click all the way down on these horizontal edges, all the way to the bottom. Oops. And then the bottom one. That bottom one didn't double click properly. There we go. So I've now got all of those edges selected. And what we're going to do is use the bevel tool again. So we'll go back up to Edit Mesh, Edge, Bevel, just there. And you can see that that's kind of adjusted like that. And I want to make these a little bit smaller, these divisions. So over in the channel box, we'll grab Poly Bevel 2. And I'll click on Fraction just here. And I'm going to reduce that down. We could probably just type in a number, I'd say, for this. Probably around about 0.2. So try typing 0.2. Yeah, that's pretty good. And what that's doing is sharpening those edges up like that. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is basically round off the eraser, and I want to round off this little metal piece here. Now there's a couple of different ways we can do this, but I want to round them off permanently. So I'm going to select the eraser first of all, and I'm going to come up to the mesh menu and down to smooth option box just here. And what we want to do basically is just change this division levels number to 2 and then press apply. And that's going to round the eraser off. Then we can select the metal collet just here, and we'll do the same thing. We'll hit apply, and that's going to round that off. So you can see there, those two things are now nice and round and smooth. And what we'll do now is we'll basically just move those into position. So grab the move tool and grab the y-axis green handle, just drag that down until it's on the end of the pencil, and then we'll grab the eraser and move that down into position as well, like that. You can then turn this panel off here, just hit close, and there we go. So that's basically our almost finished pencil model. We'll do one more video, and in that video what we'll do is add some coloring using some different colored materials. So we'll leave this video here, and I will see you in the next part.